Picking the best CPU for gaming ensures your graphics card is always well fed with game frames and working to its utmost potential. It's also a worthy investment for any creative work, editing, or streaming. With more cores than ever available, you wouldn't need to worry about multitasking pushing your PC to the limits anymore. In this video, we're going to talk about breaking down the 7 best CPUs for gaming on the market this year, based on price, performance, durability, and more. We took a look at products in all cost ranges, so whether you want the one for the best value or the best one, period, we got the best option for you. The products in this video are mentioned in no exact order, so be sure to stay tuned and don't miss anything. Starting this list with the Intel Core i9-10900K. If you want the absolute best CPU for gaming, then the Core i9-10900K is all the CPU you will ever need. It's overkill for the vast majority of cases, apart from possibly being the very, very high end. You probably don't need this processor, but if you build a machine around it, you know it won't be this chip that's holding you back. The Core i9-10900K is the first time Intel's managed to squeeze 10 processing cores into the mainstream lineup. Given that it can hit 5.3 GHz, it represents an impressive outing for the 14nm technology Intel's been tied to for so long. Gaming still benefits from high clock speeds, and that fact alone keeps Intel ahead for now. You'll need to invest in a Z490 motherboard to go along with this chip, and some severe cooling. Don't be fooled by that reasonable 95-watt TDP, as it'll push way beyond that, especially if you're thinking of exploring its overclocking chips. Next, we have the Intel Core i7-9700K. This is an exciting step down from the last generation i9-9900K. It sports the same number of CPU cores and has similar clock speeds, but for the first time, Intel has shipped a Core i7 without hyper-threading. This is entirely the opposite turn Intel has taken with the recent Comet Lake processors, where it's enabled hyper-threading throughout the stack, even down to the i3 chips. In games, the 9700K effectively tied with the more expensive Core i9, but cost around $100 less. It's all a balancing act between price, performance, and features, and the 9700K balances better than most. It's faster than the Core i7-8700K that it replaced, thanks to the extra cores and clock speeds, even if fewer threads. The lack of hyper-threading also means the i7-9700K does not get as hot as the Core i9, so you could get by with a good air cooler. Moving forward, we have the AMD Ryzen 9 3900X. AMD's third-generation Ryzen processor provides the company with its best-showing gaming CPU ever. The 3900X might not be the absolute fastest gaming CPU, but it's close enough at the settings and resolutions that gamers use. It's the most powerful CPU outside of games, and it costs roughly the same as the last generation Core i9-9900K, but it includes a decent Prism cooler that packs 50% more cores and threads. That translates into 8% slower gaming performance, but 25% faster performance in multi-threaded workloads, like video editing and 3D rendering. Suppose you're mostly worried about gaming. That 8% deficit is only apparent if lower quality settings and a lower resolution with the fastest GPU available. It might matter if you're a professional gamer, aiming at 240 FPS at minimum quality, but anyone else would be ecstatic with the performance that the 3900X delivers. Up next, we got the AMD Ryzen 7 3700X. Stepping down on the price and core counts from the 3900X, the Ryzen 7 3700X is nearly as fast in games and has all the other benefits of the Zen 2's architecture. That includes PCIe Generation 4 support, which isn't necessary today, but might be useful during the coming years, and the sensible AMD choice. Also for around $280, you'll still get an 8-core, 16-thread CPU with a Prism cooler. Compared to Intel's i7-9700K, it's about 9% slower in gaming performance, again at 1080p with the RTX 2080 Ti. If you buy a sensible GPU, like AMD's RX 5700 XT, any difference in gaming performance will be mostly meaningless. Elsewhere, in a multi-threaded application, it's about 18% faster, and overall, it wins the matchup at both performance and price. As a pure gaming CPU, the 3700X is good. Taking in the entire package, it's one of the best buys right now. As with the 3900X, overclocking is relatively limited, but memory tuning can make a more significant difference. Next product on this list is the Intel Core i5 9400F. This is an exciting option. It's slightly faster than the previous generation Core i5 8400, but ditches the Intel integrated graphics completely. That's not a problem for gamers, though if you want to use QuickSync, you're out of luck. NVIDIA's NVENC is better anyway, no argument. Overall, it's an excellent, wallet-friendly choice that doesn't cost much more than a Core i3 part. There's other compromises, like the locked multiplier, so no locking here, but you could save money and grab a H370 motherboard. At least you get a cooler in the box, something we'd like to see as an option with every CPU. Most boards will happily run the 9400KF at 3.9 GHz as well, so don't worry about the low base clock. Future games might start to push beyond the 6-core capability, but probably not before you're ready for an upgrade. Right now, the i5 9400F is plenty fast and extremely affordable. Up next, we have the AMD Ryzen 5 3600. This makes a strong case for the third-generation Ryzen CPUs, with improved performance and efficiency. The Ryzen 5 3600 is slightly behind the 3900 when it comes to gaming and other tasks, but the word slightly is for a reason. It's typically a 5% difference or less. Plus, we really doubt anyone planning on pairing it with the RTX 2080 Ti for a mid-range CPU is gonna happen. A better choice would be a mid-range GPU like the AMD RX 5700 or even the previous generation RX 590. Either way, the 3600 won't hold you back. You still get a 6-core, 12-thread processor, and outside the games, the 3600 is about 40% faster than the Intel's 9400F. Then, 3600 also costs more. It has the other benefits of AMD's Zen 2 architecture, like PCIe Generation 4. You can also look at the Ryzen 5 3600X like a small step in the performance for just $40 more, but the vanilla 3600 can overclock a bit better thanks to a lower starting point, effectively matching the more expensive sibling. And finally, we have the AMD Ryzen 5 2600. AMD's previous generation Zen Plus parts, or if you prefer, the Ryzen 2000 series CPUs, are now basically on clearance pricing. Ryzen 5 2600 is just as many cores and threads as the 3600, but it's clocked a bit slower and costs $70 less. It can run in all the same socket AM4 motherboards as any other Ryzen CPU. So if you're tight on funds today, but are thinking about a faster Ryzen in the future, this is a great stepping stone. The earlier Ryzen CPUs aren't quite adept at gaming, but again, it only matters if you're using a top-tier graphics card. Even with a 2080 Ti, at 1080p Ultra, the fastest CPU in gaming only beats 2600 by 12% on the average. With a sensible mid-range graphics card, you'll never know the difference. There's also some overclocking potential with the 2600. All Ryzen CPUs are multiplier unlocked, but the X series parts are often performed nearly as fast without overclocking. Because 2600 has lower starting clocks, you can still hit 4 GHz on all the cores, making up for any deficit. That's it, folks. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time. See ya.